Hello, everybody. I'm Martha Alter Hines, and I'm here today with two good friends, Jordyn Smith and Michelle Dench, and we are coming together on this day when in the sky right this moment, well, earlier today, Mercury was conjunct Venus in Leo, trining the North Node, and we're here to talk about Venus. And I think it's a perfect day to be doing that. And actually, I've had the weirdest sequence of events today, which included, and it wasn't planned this way, it just happened, that this morning I actually interviewed Kaylin Castell on her approach to the Venus cycle. And now I'm doing this. It's like 2 in 1 day, right? It's like Mercury conjunct Venus is just like, talk about it. Let's flow with this. And it's so beautiful. Especially, I think it's so beautiful and interesting because Kaylin comes from the shamanic astrology perspective, which I'm not trained in at all. So I was sitting in that video, like I kept messing things up. I'm going to be taking her course. So I'm a total, I'm a learner in her way of doing this. And then the three of us all come from more of the evolutionary astrology perspective. So I think these two conversations are probably going to be pretty different in a certain sense, but I have a feeling they're going to also overlap with a lot of the themes. So I think it'll be really interesting to see the contrast between these two conversations, but yet both conversations with people who I love and are just wonderful. And yeah, I'm excited to do this and be here with you.
Really love both of you, so really grateful to be with you today.
Yeah.
I'm grateful that you asked both of us to talk. I think that we're gonna have fun. So
totally. I mean, we could just start with, when Venus went retrograde on July 22nd. We're recording this on July 27th, and so we're Venus is now moving retrograde, but she's pretty early in that. And then we were also noticing, we're looking ahead also to the reality that next February, Venus and Mars are going to be conjunct in Aquarius, sort of opposite-ish, where Venus has gone retrograde. She went retrograde at 28 of Leo, and Venus and Mars will be conjunct at 5, 6, 7-ish Aquarius. So it's not exactly opposite, but the energetics are in that polarity of the Venus Leo dance. And we have a full moon coming up next Tuesday at 9 degrees of Aquarius, which is basically where that conjunction between Venus and Mars is going to happen. So it's like, I'm just feeling this whole, it's like I'm feeling into the Venus going retrograde, but what I'm really feeling myself holding energetically is this whole picture, right, of the Venus-Mars dance, because they just almost were conjunct in Leo, but then Venus went retrograde. And so they didn't actually meet, but they will meet next February in Aquarius. So there's something, like I can't even articulate it, but maybe one of you or both of you has feelings or thoughts. Like there's something in this whole picture that feels really alive and important. But what arises for you as we're sitting in this moment with all of this going on?
I think for me, I'm seeing that conjunction of Venus and Mars coming together in Aquarius with Pluto as like what I'm calling it in my own work, the path to union, right? The path to equality. And it's interesting because I've been tracking her dance since her conjunction in the last retrograde of Venus, which was in the sign of Capricorn, which was with Pluto and also with the asteroid goddess Juno, right? This has to do with structure, Capricorn, evolutionary structures related to the feminine, money, love, relationships, but also commitment. And right, marriage is a commitment. That is a contract. That is a Capricorn structure. It is very much born out of the patriarchal conditioning that we have around possessions, around, even slavery in North America, and particularly in the United States. The laws of marriage came out of the same period of colonial settler thinking. And so these are like terms, conditions, contracts, or structures of family and relationship that are undergoing massive collective renewal, right? And we are not yet to the union or to the renewal part of these agreements, of these the way of humanity being as kin, as family, as soul, friendship, equality, equanimity, all of that is not yet in. We are watching her path from the perspective of the sovereign, of the self, of the identity that has to be shifted in relationship to Pluto, in relationship to our personal power, in relationship to where we have, left ourselves. And then it's so interesting because her dance is going to be going down through Libra, crossing the South Node of where she's ruling right now, right? Reinventing relationship with the self first in order to reinvent relationship with the other, and then coming all the way back around to where she met Pluto before at the end of this year, beginning of next year, before she comes together with Pluto in a new way, in a new conjunction, and then comes together with Mars in a new way, in a new sign, opposite where we are right now in her dance. And Juno is going to be with her in that respect as well, because Juno is following in the sign of Cancer right now, moving to oppose Pluto in the next month, and then moving to join with Venus during her retrograde cycle. So I mean, I'd love to hear also for you, Jordyn, what you're tracking, but these are the things that are most alive for me.
I think right now for me, what I find really interesting, especially about the Venus-Mars conjunction happening in Aquarius, is that it's going to go over the south node of Neptune. And Neptune's been a really big piece of even this Venus retrograde cycle. So, JWG talked about how that's like where the whispers from the soul emanate, and how we are able to connect with that is by being able to listen to ourselves. And so Venus retrograde really amps up the archetypal dynamics of the Taurus side of Venus. And there's kind of this natural firing off process of how we give love, how we receive love, how we have self-love, I think is a really big thing that's coming up. And also it's our desires that are wanting to emanate revolving around these. It's dealing with Mars. And so I also feel like, whenever you correlate the south node of Neptune, you have to correlate Uranus, which is going to still be in Taurus at this time. And so I think for a lot of people, there can be a lot of connecting with the inner voice that helps them to spiritualize on some level, no matter what stage of evolution that they're in. And I think that this is a momentous time to really pay attention to the repeating thoughts that come up, because this is going to be in direct resonance with what our soul is wanting and desiring at this moment to fulfill in life, in regards to old, relationships and new relationships that come in that are definitely, where maybe we didn't get to fulfill a karmic dynamic with someone in the past. And now we're wanting to transform it in a new way. And so it's really imperative for all of us to be listening to that. And so I think it'll be interesting to see what happens whenever Mars and Venus do conjunct, and then they both pass over that south node of Neptune and fire up that Uranus, which is that south node of Neptune's ruler. And if we think about it, Neptune and Pisces right now we're all dissolving a lot of dynamics, and especially with the yaw that went on with the Venus retrograde cycle whenever it started. It was Neptune, Venus, and the south node of Libra. And so it's just kind of this continuation of this cycle of really needing to pay attention to the inner voice as to understand, connect more with source in whatever capacity, even if this can look like strengthening your relationship with source. That's a relationship in and of itself that we don't talk about enough. I know I don't get to because of who I usually have watched my channel. So I love having this opportunity to dive more into kind of this kind of thing with you ladies. So yeah.
I love it. I love, Jordyn, that you bring in the planetary nodes.
I know, that's exactly what I was about to say. It's like, I love when you do that.
I can't help it. It's like, it's so, it's fascinating to me. I think it's fascinating right now too, to look at, I was reading on the old message board, actually today, 8 years ago, whenever it was the nodal opposition that was going on, and it was switching into Virgo Pisces actually. And it was really interesting because you do want to correlate, like if you're wanting to understand what is going on right now in your own life, you can look at your Venus's own south node and see what she's aspecting, because it's going to be bringing up all of that. And then if you're wanting to see where your soul and what's trying to emanate, well, we need to be looking at our north node of Mars in tandem with our own Mars. And so I find it highly fascinating to look at all of this as one big, it's EA.
I want you to look at that for me.
Yeah, exactly. I was like, oh, wait,
Totally.
Tell me again how we can look this up.
I've got you.
No, yeah, when you and I did the video on Lilith for the Rebecoming the One symposium, you gave me a link for people to look up the nodes of all the planets. So I'll go back and find that link so we can link it with this video, because yes.
Totally. And I can send it to you,
Cool.
right after this. So we can. I have it saved on it's bookmarked. I use it all the time.
It's so awesome.
One of the things that you reminded me of, in terms of considering what the evolutionary intention is, and I'm sure it's going to be different for each person. I'd love even to hear for you guys if you've had a sense of like what your intention is. But what came up for me in just reflecting on 4 core questions for myself of like deeper Venus patterns that I'm wanting to actively engage and work with during this retrograde cycle. I have 4 questions that I asked myself, and, I'm happy to share them here. How do I deal with my patterns of separation? Which is these are like the conditioned ways in which, because North Node is in Aries, right? And it's that I, me, mine energy, but the distortion of that is the pattern of separation, right? If Pluto and the evolutionary intention is this call towards unity, towards healing, towards unification of the soul, reuniting with source, then those patterns of separation are the places where I lose my connection to source. And you reminded me of this, Jordyn, with like reconnecting to source. How do I relax my need for control to feel safe? And that it reminds me of the Pluto part, right? The Pluto in Capricorn, the need for control, or even the, potentially the Libra part of needing control in relationship, and the polarity point being in Cancer, creating that sense of feeling safe. How do I heal jealousy and insecurity that will come up with others, and the underlying fears? And I think this points back to more that Scorpio South Node Taurus polarity that we had been dealing with in in the past 18 months, but really it's like the Juno piece for me is healing those underlying insecurities. And then the fourth question is, how do I relax my nervous system and ground myself in a way of creating deeper self-love and self-trust? And I think this is what brings it all back to the place of the Venus. Like, I am home inside my own being. If I have trust in source and I have trust in myself and the unfolding of all things, then I'm just meeting the places in my nervous system where it's conditioned towards fear, control, abandonment, rejection, or whatever. All of those things, those are the patterns that I'm healing in this return home to myself. So that's been what's alive in these times.
I love that. And it made me think, like, maybe at some point, maybe even at the end of this video, maybe we can just, I love the idea of setting intentions for this time, the cycle, whatever it is. Maybe we can actually even actively give a little moment for people to do that if it feels right for people. That suddenly seemed really beautiful. And yeah, I haven't done that, and I would love to do that. And anyway, if that feels right, maybe we can do that before we end. But another thing that arose for me hearing you guys talking is that it suddenly dawned on me, right? Like, this is obvious, but I just hadn't put it 2 and 2 together in this way, is that as Venus and Mars were almost conjunct, we still had the nodes in Scorpio and Taurus. And then they switched signs and Venus went retrograde right around the same time. And then when Venus and Mars actually do conjunct, the nodes will be ruled by Venus. I mean, the nodes now are ruled by Venus and Mars, right? I mean, well, and if you think of Scorpio as being ruled partially by Mars, then they already were ruled by Venus and Mars. But anyway, my point is that the relationship of Venus and Mars to the nodes has now changed. At the least, it's gone. They've switched nodes. Yeah. So it's just, again, I don't have something really concrete to articulate about that, but I'm just noticing that when the conjunction does happen in Aquarius next February, it will be with this particular nodal signature as opposed to the one we just completed. And yes, that Aries Libra dance where they will come together in Aquarius, specifically in Aquarius, where, for me, it's like, I think something about our uniqueness, our celebrating our own diversity, like that we can do this in this new way. It's partly helping to maybe usher in Pluto entering Aquarius. Like, there's so many dots on the page with it. And we have this Aquarius new full moon coming up next Tuesday. Also kind of like, just, I feel like there's these, like with all these cycles, there's just little
breadcrumbs.
There you go. That's what yes. I was imagining dots through the forest and I was like, what's that word?
Yeah, they're breadcrumbs.
Yeah.
Because the moon, the moon, she leads the way. She's like with little whispers, and then she gives like big information around eclipses, which is like, mind blowing. But I do think you're right on, Martha, with the full moon sort of being a leading edge of awareness around what this cycle is bringing us through into the next year,
Yeah.
For me, when you were talking about it, it makes me think of, so if we are looking at, relational dynamics, well, first of all, let me backtrack. So the North Node was in Taurus, ruled by this Venus, and a lot of us were working on this inner relationship with ourselves, right? We're working, but Pluto was also square that. So we're having to reflect on all of the BS that we don't really want to reflect on, right? It's scorpionic, stuff. And now this is like this moment of dynamics that are coming into our lives in order for us to actually harmonize with life and to pull in the people that we're supposed to, our tribe, our family, Aquarius. But there, with this full moon, like wanting to break free, there's still some like karmic clearing that's wanting to go down.
Yeah.
And that directly correlates to Uranus being in Taurus, which is the ruler of that Neptune South Node. I'm probably going to keep coming back to this a few times during this. So, but so we know with Uranus, though, it's like we'll get these signals, right, of what it is we're supposed to be doing. And that comes from our consciousness, which is directly correlated to Source, Neptune South Node. And then Uranus being in Taurus, it's about listening to the inner voice in order to connect with that. And so it's this momentous time to really clear out these patterns of really patriarchal conditioning around how we do relationships in a variety of ways, and to really honor what the soul's core intention is wanting us to do. And so it is extremely important for us to pay attention to that voice, that inner voice that is repeating things over and over as to what to do. It's inherent in every person. It's not just us. It's a God-given gift, right? It's something that happens to everyone. So it's important to pay attention to that. And I think that with that full moon, I feel like a lot of us could be having those signals come in stronger as to being directed. What is it that we're supposed to do? And then we have the time to really culminate, right? Because it's a full moon. And then in February, whenever this Mars Venus conjunction comes into play and then goes over that South Node, it's go time. It's, the rubber meets the road. It's crap or get off the pot, so.
And
Yeah.
to add to that, another thing happening as Venus is making this retrograde journey is that she already was square to Uranus once, and she's going retrograde now, and she'll be square again 2 more times, right? As she does this. So that just adds another layer to the same thing you're saying.
And it's about our state of becoming. It's Leo and Aries energy coming together cohesively. It's like, what are you going to do whenever tension comes up in your life? It's like you've got to lean into that curve with these dynamics. And with Venus retrograde, it's really about, like I said, it emphasizes the inner voice, but it's about our state of becoming. What is it that your soul is wanting you to self-actualize? It's also where the mother and the father get to be embodied. So it's like, where are you wanting to induct your masculine and feminine energy in a really healthy, honorable, dignified way? It's, about our self-love. And that is a way to show self-love, is by fusing those two energies and not being afraid of one or the other. And, I just really, that's my spiel.
Beautiful. Yeah. And Kaylin, in the conversation we had this morning, talked a lot about, to her, the Venus and Leo cycle is starting on August, I guess she said 19th. I've heard people say 13th. She says 19th. Anyway, in August. and so that's going to be our overarching meta goddess. And I was actually born in a Leo meta goddess phase, which is very cool to me. But she talked about this 19-month cycle of Venus and Leo. For her, is very, very, very much about self-love and all of that, all the healthy Leo potential. I'm really curious with the two of you. You kind of touched on this, Jordyn, but I'm feeling that Venus Mars conjunction in Aquarius is like almost like holding a space for us, like in the future. And time doesn't really exist, right? So it's like I feel that coming together as holding something energetically for us. And I'm curious what that energy of Venus and Mars being conjunct in Aquarius feels like to you, or what potential do you feel like is there, or what arises when you imagine that moment?
I'll let you go first, Michelle.
Um,
I just got done yapping.
feel like, there is a state of relationship and being, and that humanity has yet to actually grok, and on some level, we are aware that the way that we're living, the way that we're relating, the way that we're conditioned is totally dysfunctional. And generation after generation has, like, Pluto is a 248-year cycle. So it's like our ancestors and our ancestors, and they've all been inching towards this realization vis-a-vis all these forms of, rebelling, Pluto, Uranus breaking free. And when you were talking, Jordyn, I got this visual image that I had seen earlier today of a man holding a protest sign with an Audre Lorde quote that says, "Revolution is not a one-time event."
Mm.
And it's not. It's right. Like, all of this deconditioning, all of this evolution that we're going through is actually a deeply slow process. So there is a catching up of Venus and Mars, our elemental, daily, personal living, to a place in humanity that has been an incremental shift over the generations. And we can see all of these places are deeply reflecting the shifts in our own identity, Leo, Aquarius, that are required in order for us to be more authentically who we actually are. And when I hear you talking about it, Jordyn, it's like, yeah, we're rebelling against an external form of authority and to an inner listening, inner authority that then reflects more of the truth of who we are. And the more we do that, then the relationships that we have and the way we're in relationship come around eventually, evolutionarily, into being in harmony with this deeper soul family, so, kin. And I love it. Like, what is that? I wrote it, your questions down, Jordyn. What is it that your soul is beginning to actualize? Because I do really think a lot about, I used to ask myself this question that's very similar to that. Who am I becoming who I have already become? Who am I becoming that I have already become? Because essentially, if you are becoming butterfly, that, very age-old famous, evolutionary transformation metaphor, if you have already become butterfly, then that the DNA of butterfly is in your being. But if you're going through caterpillar deconstruction process, that is already, it's like hardwired into the system. And then we're coming around to an actual experience of butterfly being. But right now we're in the icky, sticky, tricky becoming. And to the extent that we resist that, it feels uncomfortable. It feels like I'm losing a sense of self. It feels like life is uncertain. But the certainty of becoming butterfly is always been there, always been programmed in. So there is a part of us that's at peace with whatever is happening, because that's part of the becoming. Like, this is just, evolution is always happening. I heard Ari say that this week, and I'm like, yeah, that's true. And it's slow, and resistance or cooperation is always part of our choice, right? And I do think this Venus in Leo is about claiming choice. And the more we claim choice and feel choice and agency in our choice, and the more we're at peace with what's happening in our lives. Yeah.
Two things have come up in my praying lately, or one thing came up. One of them, okay, two things I want to say. last Friday, I held a gathering where I channeled something, and what came through was so interesting. I had never thought of it like this, but it's like, the channeling was focused on Pluto squaring the nodes, if I remember correctly. And essentially what the spirit world said was, even when we're in the midst of this, Pluto going retrograde in Capricorn, squaring the nodes of the moon, and it feels like we are maybe that caterpillar becoming the goop, and everything is dissolving, like all the structures that we have had are dissolving. The thing that never goes away is the structure of the divine, right? So like it can feel like we have no clue what the heck is going on, and everything is falling away, or we internally feel whatever it is we're feeling. So Uranian to me is even Uranus and Taurus specifically is, but the thing that doesn't dissolve, even if everything is dissolving, the one thing that does not ever dissolve is divine truth, right? So like the structure of the intelligence of the divine it doesn't dissolve. It's the one thing we can really count on. So we can lean into, like, give ourselves over, like, even if we're feeling everything turning to goop, we can turn ourselves over into the solidity of this. The way I see it is like the grid, a light grid throughout existence. It's like, that's not going to dissolve ever. It might shift, and might be very dynamic, but it's not going to not exist. That's number one. And then number two, what came through a couple days ago, as Pluto was precisely squaring the nodes, and I also never would have thought of this, but what they showed me is like, there's a moment in that chrysalis where the caterpillar has been dissolving. So it's like Pluto, coming more and more and more and more close to that precise moment of squaring the nodes. And we happen to be in that moment now this week. And they said, so it's like when we're descending in the underworld, there's a moment where we switch. There's a spark of conception that happens at the bottom of the underworld, right? Or like in the caterpillar fully dissolving into the goop, there's like a energetic spark moment where the butterfly begins, but the butterfly only is coming from what the caterpillar already was, which is basically what you're saying, Michelle, I think, in a sense. But it's like this moment that we're in can feel so scary and so disconcerting and confusing and all of the above, right? And number one, we have that Uranus and Taurus intelligence of the divine that just it's there, it's solid, it's true. And there's the spark moment. Anyway, that's the picture of what they say is happening, like right now. And it seems somehow then maybe related to.
I definitely had thoughts while you were talking about this, and also while you were talking as well, Michelle, because I'm like imagining the chart in my head. So
Do you want me to bring up the chart? Which one?
no, you don't have to. So it was interesting to think about. So at the start of this, Venus retrograde cycle, there's that yod between Neptune, the South Node in Libra, and Venus. Uranus is ruled by this Venus. Neptune is the ruler of Saturn. And so it's like we are actually in a state of recovering ourselves right now through bringing the awareness of the imbalances that stem from patriarchal themes, right? Pluto squaring that node and the resolution being the South Node. But it also makes me think of the root chakra and how there's Saturn, Uranus, and Pluto. And these are all big contenders that are happening while all of this is going down. There's actually this dissolving that's wanting to happen of that outer layer of the root chakra, which is Saturn. And Uranus is there, who's pounding away on this, right? Like, oh no, come back to yourself. Like, you know, reveal who you are. It's about being your most natural, authentic self by sloughing off, I'm using, Michelle, your term, conditioning that is patriarchal to reveal who we are, right? And there's this natural, you know, collective phenomenon that's going on right now pertaining to this. We are literally wanting to change our consciousness on a collective level. Like, and also we are doing that through dissolving any type of man-made constructs right now that are impeding on knowing who we are, knowing our sovereignty. And so this root chakra for all of us, I feel like, is being lit up. And we have like this, you know, because it's like on a collective level, we're all wanting to return back to our natural selves. We're all wanting to, I won't say all, but the majority of us, that is the collective feeling. And it actually is, we're in this, the cocoon is great. I also like to think of a frog like a tadpole, and then, you know, the egg, the tadpole, and the frog. I feel like it's so Scorpio and no one ever talks about it. Like, and it's fitting for an Aries, you know, North Node as well. But, and also just, I won't even go into, I digress. But it is like this time period of where we're all being called to ground within our center of our reconnection with that which we came from on some level. Like I said, it doesn't even matter what stage of evolution that we're in. And it is this time period when you look at the astrology being reflected, there are so many inconjuncts that are happening and so many retrogrades. So we've got relive, redo in order to resolve. So we're re-experiencing all of these dynamics, and it happens to be with our relationships, that South Node in Libra, because we're one, that's how we evolve, is through our relationships. And then we're having to learn about natural ways of being in relationship, which is really the focus of that Neptune yod, the South Node, and Venus. And part of us returning to our center is having self-respect, self-love, understanding that, reclaiming that, because so many people have taken on the projections, the expectations, and the oppressive nature of what's been going on. And it's not even in this lifetime, it's for several lifetimes. And so we're in this time period of a realignment, readjustment, and we're doing that through reliving these core dynamics as a way to birth something. I think of that, we're in the stage of the egg of the frog, right? Like, we're about to become tadpoles. And so we're going to be swimming around, and through comparison and contrast, we're going to learn what we can and can't do. And then we're going to grow legs, and in true Aryan fashion, we're going to get to hop out of here and, like, you know, do what we need to do. And this is just the way that I conceptualize the astrology of literally what's going down right now. It's, yeah, it's, I hope I'm making sense.
I love it.
I've been jamming with the frog too, man, because Jeffrey Wolf Green talks about Taurus, you know, second house as the frog in the well. And that metaphor is so beautifully used in evolutionary astrology. And it really hasn't been until like the last couple of weeks that I really understand what is going on with that frog in the well in terms of our evolutionary shifts. And if that's true, and then we're all literally like going through this on some level, the frog is a good friend to be aware of in these times. And I really love that, Jordyn. I love you bringing that forward.
Is there anything else you feel like you want to say about, because now I'm like, well, say more. What What
Well,
about
that
it?
whole, that conditioning, that conditioned perspective, I've been really feeling like the Scorpio South Node was us really reaching the bottom of the well, like scraping out the bottom of the barrel of the emotional, physical, sexual, procreative, um, grasping and attachment that, and when Pluto was squaring that South Node, and then it switched over to Venus ruling that South Node. And it's like now we're scraping out the bottom of the relational barrel, where all of the tendencies towards people pleasing or, dynamics in relationship become the places. And for me, I think there's so much magic in the inconjunct, in the yod. It's
I agree.
it's called the finger of God for a reason. It's pointing us in the direction of where evolution is happening, and at the same time the legs are these release points where energy is moving out. Energy moves out and down through the legs. And I really hear that, like, from that Neptune perspective. Of course, it's like a lot of the more we can forgive and let go of the past and reconnect to source. I've been thinking all week, like, what would happen if I just gave my life to Jesus, like, for 2 weeks, just to see, and I joke, I digress, but it's like, it's for real, this contemplation of what is it to really give myself to source for the next 2 weeks, and to really, like, just commit to every time I feel like stuck in a relational pattern, every time I'm meeting the discomfort of evolution, of ways in which I'm still stuck in resistance, or I'm facing resistance, whatever is outside is inside. It's just, that's true. And I can get behind that. But then I'm also the only one who can get myself out of my own way. The frog I've been thinking about this, like, how does the frog get out of the well?
Yeah.
Does the frog jump out on its own? Does it get like enough bounce in its step to get the hell out of the well? Does the water level rise and the frog floats and relaxes until it gets to the top and it can just easily climb out? Or does somebody else put a basket in the well and scoop the frog out? And by accident or by grace or by divine intervention, the frog gets lifted out of the well. Because a lot of people have been coming to me in sessions feeling immense confusion, uncertainty, not knowing the clarity from their own being of what they need to do to respond differently, to change circumstances, or feeling stuck, like stuck at the bottom of the well. And that's the place where it's like, I don't know what the answer is. Sometimes it might be that you got to get your legs under you and jump the hell out of that well. Sometimes it might be that the water level is just going to naturally rise and bring you out into the next, into the new, into some other condition. But I honestly think that with an evolution, we can't really leave conditions. What said Jordyn really reminded me of, that relationships are going to serve evolution. They're going to repeat themselves. We're going to relive patterns from the past until we evolve. That's the piece. At our level of consciousness, no matter what, everyone's going to be have different experiential, and developmental conditions. But that's kind of how the frog gets out of the well, as far as I can see.
What's interesting for me is I have my North Node in Libra in my second house in that well. And then I'm about to have my nodal return precisely on the eclipses coming up in October, right? But Venus, which rules my North Node in Libra, is my natal Venus, is on my South Node. So as you're talking about how do we get out of the well, my instinct in me is like, wait a minute, I don't want to get out of the well. It's like, for me, it's like the well the image I was getting was the well maybe becoming like a what is it in Star Trek, like what is it, holodeck?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Boom.
like
Yep.
yeah, well that, but also like within, I can stay in my well, but have it become its own world where I can do both the well and the not well at the same time. That's but again, I have Venus ruling my north node in my second house on my south node in my eighth house, right? So for me, it's like really about balancing, like it's triple about, I'm working on balancing all of it at the same time. So that's me. But
That's so interesting too, because won't Venus be on the south node by transit opposing during those eclipses, like right around that time? You should check.
I think there's
Yeah.
something going on with that. I think Mars passes over the south node first and then Venus comes something. Yeah.
They're
Mhm.
all going to square Pluto. Like we
Wow.
exited the Libra, Venus, Libra, Mars time with
Mhm.
like square to Pluto. Like I just feel like it's like tipping our hat to the evolutionary shift
Mm.
as
Mm.
we exit the path
Pluto
of
and
Aquarius,
Capricorn.
right? Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
You know, something else I was thinking about, like just more on like a collective level, as well as like this is a momentous time for all of us to rebalance what it is to be in harmony with Earth as a relationship.
Totally.
To me, Saturn is wanting us to really dissolve temporal values. It being ruled by Neptune is a Neptune South Node and Aquarius, how we've destroyed Earth, like Uranus, that and the need to really take hold of more natural values. And with Venus retrograde in this yacht that I've been talking about, this is also about the creative actualization of what would that look like for us on a collective level, because the opposite of Leo is Aquarius. What would this look like for humanity? What would it look like for all of us to be one by one doing our personal work, so that way we can see this projected into the earth, like the world when Pluto is in Aquarius, as a way to form a collective bond, a tribe that is based in inclusion, giving, sharing, as opposed to exclusion, and so we can, with Venus retrograde on a collective level, be looking at the values that are exclusionary and have created imbalances. South node Libra, and with Pluto square to that, ruled by that Saturn and Pisces, a lot of this I feel like is going to be coming up over the next six weeks. I mean, didn't they even just talk about, and then this goes back to the collective consciousness, Uranus and Taurus, the ruler of Neptune South Node and Aquarius. Like I can't get it out of my head as we talk about all of this. It's like, so what is on a collective level we're trying to shift our consciousness towards? What state of becoming with the north node of Neptune and Leo and the sun is that integration point. What are we wanting to understand on a collective level, and how can each one of us do that personal work so that way it creates a ripple effect? And it's like this massive deconditioning time period. And like, if you look globally, it makes me so angry no one's really talking about this, like except for Greta Thunberg, which I love her. Like, it's like, it's been recorded the hottest days ever in history. Like, and it is literally like, if we don't want more pandemics to come or things to happen, like what can we do to collectively change our consciousness around our values and creatively actualizing that? It's almost like on a collective level, I have like goosebumps. Our humanity is in this time period of a state of becoming, of wanting to self-actualize or creatively actualize in what it is, what would be the values that could help humanity right now? What old values do we need to liberate from? What do we have to do to create balance and harmony in our relationship to Gaia? Like, this is a relationship. It's not just, you know, it's sentient and we're destructing it. And, you know, it's like utter, and no one's even talking about it. And so I feel like it's really important to pull that in with this Venus retrograde cycle and just everything we've all been talking about, because we're all going to feel this on a personal level, because guess what? We're collective, connected to the collective consciousness. And so like, this is like the whispers from like the collective consciousness, the source of all things, like, hey, get your shit together, like, you know, come back into balance and harmony. And so it's like, what can each one of us individually do, and what can we do as groups of people to really harmonize with this beautiful place that we should all be having a relationship with? So I'll get off my soapbox.
Well, and we have Jupiter also in Taurus, about, you know, to go retrograde at 15 of Taurus, but then next April will be conjunct Uranus, I think at 21-ish Taurus, and Uranus currently is at 22 Taurus, I want to say.
22.
So, yeah, so Uranus is gonna go direct, and then where it is conjunct Jupiter next April is essentially ish where it is right now, right? I mean, not exactly, but basically. So I think that's really interesting. And I feel yeah.
I feel like that could be like wanting to like change the belief structures, right? Like, is that what you were feeling?
What I was feeling is more like, to me, Uranus is, you know, our connection with, the intelligence of the divine. And I feel when Jupiter is conjuncted, it's just going to expand our ability to connect with that. And so I feel like Uranus is like holding space for that reality, that reality, that structure of the divine that doesn't ever go away.
I definitely agree with that. I also think if we're trying to creatively actualize about like what our values are, we're going to have to look at what shapes our values, which is our beliefs. And so that's like that Jupiter dynamic being pulled into that. And so we need to reflect on all of this as a way to release the temporal values, and to like, it's kind of like there's this reckoning, sorry, my dog's right here, this reckoning of, on a collective level, like what is temporal? Like, what would it look like for like the majority of people to be totally aligned with nature herself? Like, what would that look like?
Remember that we are nature.
Exactly. And that is the Taurus dynamic and the sextile to natural sextile to Pisces. But it's like, what would it look like to, I don't know, just like, it goes back to that whole chrysalis and frog thing as well. Is like that even the collective is in this whole state of becoming. And that's why all of us are feeling it, is because we are interconnected. And it's, you know, we're all wanting on some level to reveal our natural selves, to come back to that reality that in prior lifetimes, the majority of us have lived. You know, we've lived in matriarchal times. We have that knowledge within us. And so it's like recovering that as a way to help change and dissolve man-made constructs in order to continue to harmonize with Gaia right now, I feel like.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, it's interesting. Jupiter is also part of that same 3 square dance with Venus. And so, and all of these retrograde cycles feel like they're really, it's like the 3 square dance is tightening and tightening. We're going back and forth. We're, you know, meeting the edges of where, okay, yeah, I get it. My values are these, and like my identity is this, and then and this has to shift in my identity or in my relationships or in my values in order for me to come back into alignment with like the natural source, the natural law, the natural way, the natural state. And to the extent we've been totally out of alignment for hundreds of years, thousands, maybe thousands, who knows? But at least in this lifetime, in these bodies, right, we're culminating as souls that are really in the question of how do we get back into alignment with a way of being and living that we have known before, but none of us have seen in these bodies in this lifetime, you know.
Yeah, totally.
One of the times I did ceremony about a year ago, I received a vision of humanity that was like so deep inside of me, a knowing of what a way that we've lived in perfect peace with one another, that is not like a way that we see ourselves living in this time. And I mean, it's as simple as like, how our money and our resources and our time and our energy and our families and the way we raise children and the way we relate to the earth and how we consume and all these things seeming like ball of, tangled knots just gets bit by bit unwound and unwound until it is a single thread where we see ourselves connected, all not in a, not in a disconnected way, but we're all holding on to that same one thread. We're carrying that thread through. And I see these retrograde periods that we're in. It's like right after Venus, then Mercury, then Uranus. Uranus stations towards the end of Venus's retrograde. And then as soon as she stations direct, just a few days later, Jupiter goes retrograde. It's like, it's all working to bring us, more tightly into that connection with what we already know.
Yes.
Yeah.
I hadn't tracked all of the astrological details, but yes, the gist is exactly what I've been feeling. Yes.
I also think it's interesting with Pluto square the nodes with the resolution. And then the next time when there's the nodal opposition, so 8 years from now with this, Pluto's going to be in Aquarius, right? So we're like starting this journey right now at the end of this Pluto Capricorn cycle. And so I also think, there's a great, and I have a Libra moon, so I know this very well. It takes an extreme to counteract an extreme. And that is a Libra dynamic, and it's definitely a part of evolution, and it's something that was taught by Jeffrey Wolf Green, is what are we going to see as a way to counteract what's going down right now, but how can each one of us be doing our part? Right now, especially like this Venus retrograde cycle, as Pluto squaring these nodes before it goes back into Aquarius. Like, it's like, this is make or break time, baby. Like, what are we going to do here? Like, so it just, for me personally, it puts a fire under my ass to really just do my own evolutionary work. So that way I can help in any way that I can with whatever I'm integrating at this moment, because you can't give it unless you got it, And so it's definitely, I just hope that people are thinking about this, that's, I think my North Node in Pisces in the 10th house is like, I just have so much compassion for humanity. Like, we are sticky, icky, messy. And that is like where we actually spiritualize. And we've all chosen to come here at this point in time because we all feel some type of purpose directly correlated to exactly what we're talking about. And so it's this unique ability, right? Pluto in Aquarius, Uranus and Taurus. What is intrinsic and unique? What can we offer to help be a part of the whole, to help the whole? And each one of us has our innate resources that we're carrying in to help humanity. Uranus and Taurus, like, what is it that we're wanting to do here? What is your soul literally whispering to you? Because this is going to be coming up this whole time. Venus retrograde is only 6 weeks, but going back to Mars and Venus conjunct, the rulers of both conjunct, and then passing over that south node of Neptune, ruled by Uranus. What are you wanting to actualize right now to be a part of humanity, to help to heal Neptune, Virgo kind of dynamics? And if we think about Lilith, like I can bring her into this whole thing, is she's still in Virgo. She just opposed Neptune. This is what is practical, so we can return to our center, our root of our state of becoming, of the masculine and the feminine. What are the practical things that you can do every single day that help you in your life to be able to be present in your state of becoming, to purge and purify what is no longer resonating on a emotional feeling level that is keeping you separate from knowing and understanding yourself in the way that your soul is wanting to reveal right now. This is the Lilith work that is wanting to be done right now. And, you know, there's love coming in with Neptune around this. Like, there's so much self-compassion we can have. And it goes back to that Maya Angelou quote, like, when you know better, you do better. This is that moment for a lot of us, I feel like, when you know better, you do better. So what are you going to do to take the practical steps to return to your own sovereignty, to your own center? And this also pulls in Pluto in conjunct Venus. What correct judgment call can you make regarding this, regarding your values, regarding your self-love, that can actually help humanity? Like, what it creates the ripple effect, you know?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I did ceremony last week, and on the Pluto square, exact as the moon was in Virgo applying to Lilith. And one of the messages I received, which resonates so perfectly with what you just said, Jordyn, is that we only struggle with purpose when we don't know who we are. We
Absolutely.
only struggle with purpose when we don't know who we are. And that, I think, is a part of that calling. It's like, if we don't know who we are, then of course we'll be easily led into doing all these different things, participating in all these ways in, you know, capitalism and destructive, you know, oppressive structures. And we'll feel lost. We will feel a sense of disconnection from the earth, disconnection from our body, disconnection from others. And yet, just the call back to remember who you are, you know, and if you do that work, like, I want to remember who I am, who I really am, right? That's who I'm becoming, is the truth of who I am. That's where I'm returning, is to the truth of my source. Then that can be just the fun journey of this Venus retrograde. I'm just going to use this time to remember who I am. If I forget, I hope I have friends who remind me. Jordyn, you're one of those people. Martha, you're one of those people where I can call you. I know if I've forgotten who I am, you will remember me. You will remember me.
That is so funny. You know, that's actually, I love this. This is so beautiful, because that came in ceremony to you is a direct reflection of that Lilith opposing Neptune. And what it is the bottom line is like, don't make excuses. It's about only being attached to the truth, not some expectation, not some outcome. It's what is practical, what is right in front of you, that is the truth. And then go from there. And whenever we do that, we get to align with our center, because we're not fighting it. We're not denying ourselves in a distorted Virgo way, right? Mm-hmm. Which Mercury and Virgo coming up with this, like, I think a lot of people are going to be facing the truth of their state of denying themselves what it is that they're wanting to do on a spiritual level, like how they're wanting to evolve. And it actually serves as the realignment and the readjustment for them. It's seen in the astrology. I think it's beautifully reflected, and it is all a part of returning to that center. So it's like, no matter what happens in our life, it's only for us to be able to attach to the truth, and that's it. Mm-hmm. It's as simple as that. That's a naturally occurring law, you know?
Beautiful. And I know we were going to aim for an hour, and we're definitely over an hour. So
okay.
we probably should bring it to a close here. But what's so uncannily interesting about what you guys are saying is that I was told by the spirit world next week to hold a free gathering called Infinite Soul Wisdom Initiation Gathering, which anybody who watches my videos has already heard me talk about 3,000 times, so I wasn't going to mention it in this video at all, but it's exactly what you guys are talking about. So it's going to be a free gathering on the next Wednesday and another one next Friday. And I can put the links, but yeah, it's exactly that. It's like the spirit world is wanting to channel an opportunity to literally remember who we are on that soul spark level and come back to it. So if anybody is interested, hasn't signed up, definitely you're welcome. But yeah, exactly what I've been getting told. Is there anything that you guys have coming up or that you're offering that you want to mention, or anything else before we close? Oh, and maybe we can also end with the prayer thing. But in terms of your offerings, is there anything alive that you
I have a class series, which is continuing. I've been teaching all year, this first 6 months of the year, Love Evolution, which is following the path of Venus and her dance with Pluto. We started with her conjunction with Pluto, and we've moved all the way through her retrograde. The last 2 classes that we're finishing up are this square to the nodes. And then we will begin a new series in September with her initiation towards the path of union, with her and Mars joining up. So the next 6 months is this path to union, and I'll be doing a free introduction class, just outlining her whole dance and journey with Mars, and her coming to Pluto, basically coming home to herself in Pluto, in my own fashion of doing it transmission style. I'd love it if I can give you the link to the free introduction class that's coming up in August. And yeah, if you want to join me for that journey, it'll be a lot of fun.
Love that. I just have honestly stuff going on here in Oklahoma right now. I am doing a gathering with my friend Lori in the middle of August for the new moon. And I'm preparing for the conference, and I'm doing a class for Lilith and the nodes on it's going to be happening over the weekend of October 6th through 8th, and I know that you can go to jwgaea.org/conference. Is it / or /?
Everything's on the
website.
Yeah.
And so I'm doing that, and then that's pretty much it right now. I'm knee deep in children.
Yeah, yeah, we're all knee deep in children. We all also do readings, and all of that, right? Yeah, wonderful. Do you feel comfortable closing with like a moment of leading us and anyone who wants to into setting an intention for Michelle? Do you want to say a tiny bit more about whatever you were saying sounded beautiful, but I can't remember exactly what you were saying.
Yeah, and my piece was calling in the four corners of the square and all the places where the work is, the edges, and just holding, I think in the center of it is this intention of really coming to know, who am I becoming in this time? Yeah.
Do you want to lead us in a 1, 2, 3 minute dropping into that?
Feeling the presence of where you are on this beautiful planet. And calling in all of the supportive and beloved forces that are combining to make the matter of who we are in these physical realities, and at the core of that, this journey that we are all taking home to our source, to our center, to the place where we come from. And that place is so deeply connected to each and every life that we touch. So as we move with this journey of Venus in her retrograde, that each movement comes closer in, closer to the sun, to the solar light of our divine purpose, to illuminating the beauty of who we are, lighting up the darkness and the confusion of our minds with the clarity of source, which knows exactly that everything in our life is perfect and beautifully designed. I see Martha with that illuminated grid of connection that we all share, a part, a piece of this fabric of humanity, and that together we are all coming closer to knowing the truth. And as Jordyn so beautifully reflected, let us just remain attached to the truth and nothing else. The truth of who we are, the truth of what we are, the truth of where we are in each and every moment. So taking a deep breath where you are, and centering inside the home and the being that you are, and coming into the clarity of the memory of who we are. Thank you so much for being together with us today in this way. And may all the words that we shared and all the reflections of this time be a blessing and a healing to everyone who listens to this recording. Thank you to my deep soul sisters too for invoking this conversation, coming together in this way. Such a sweet sharing with you.
So beautiful. Amen. What I was feeling was, wow. I was feeling the rose of the Venus cycle, you know, the flower of the pattern it makes. And I was feeling it in my heart chakra, and Venus rules the heart chakra, right? So, and I was feeling it soothing, like healing my heart, because a lot of what I've gone through in the last few weeks has felt very, on a personal level, I've had to recover from my own hurt going on in my heart, right? And so I was feeling like the soothing of that energetic of like the divine Venus energy. And yeah, just maybe that's a reminder that might help other people too, just that this Venus, I hadn't dropped into it that way, but it could be really deeply soothing if we're experiencing the pain that maybe is going along with, you know, the Pluto retrograde and the squaring the nodes and all of it.
That also makes me think for a lot of people right now, if they're wanting to work on heart chakra stuff, which is definitely what came up for me as well. I was like, I mean, yeah, no, like as Michelle was talking, I was literally thinking of heart chakra. But I have amazing women in my life who are Potawatomi and also indigenous to South America. And they have taught me so much about ceremonial cacao, how good it is for heart chakra. And so if there are people who need that, that is something to do. It's like, absolutely, you know, have Mama Cacao open you up.
Beautiful. All
yeah,
right.
I feel all that heart opening. That's what this awakening is definitely about.
And you anyway, that was beautiful. Thank you so much, Michelle. And thank you, Jordyn. And
thank
yeah,
you.
We'll need to do these more often. Super beautiful. Thank you everybody for watching. Please let us know any thoughts, feelings you want to share. We love that. See you all soon.